A very warm welcome and thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode of the Lively Chats with me, Thembernator Lively. This is a show where we get to sit down with ordinary South Africans and they get to share their lively stories about their lives. We are joined by people from various aspects of life, and today we are joined by no stranger to your eyes. He's a child star from SABC 2 kids show called Hectic 99, appeared on television soapies such as Isidingo, The Need. He's one of the presenters on SABC 1's lifestyle magazine and gossip show Real Gaboza. And that's it. Help me welcome Samora Mangesi. Samora, how are you doing?
Well, to help me welcome Kubano to the audience.
Okay, cool. You know what? Help me welcome. We're doing this with our viewers.
Yes.
So the viewers need to help me welcome.
I hope that they're clapping wherever they are, wherever they're watching from right now.
All right. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us, Samora. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm good. I think as good as anyone can be during this period that we are seeing, not only in our country but throughout the entire world.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're just trying to stay strong, mentally and of course physically, trying to make sure that we do not, succumb to this phenomenon COVID.
Yeah. You've grown so much, and talking about growing up, you are born in East London. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know much, it's what I've read about you. Tell us about you growing up. How was that for you?
Growing up for me, I think my childhood was normal to me. And I think your childhood is always going to be normal to them. It's only once they've grown up do they see the differences between themselves and any other child. Now I grew up in a single parent household with my mom.
Very pretty lady.
Thank you very much. But I always had great male influences because I had 5 uncles who were always around. I think each and every single one of them lived with us at some point in their lives. So I grew up with that influence around me. But also I grew up in Lokshini, but going to school at town. Yes. So I had the duality of being a Model C, but coming back to home and being Nana Wasalokshi.
Perhaps versatility.
Pronunciation. So I grew up with that, and I had, I think from that is what made me a more rounded human being, because I had both experiences. I would leave home, go and tap into, this section of life, but then also come back and tap into this side of life as well. And I think that happened for the first 12 years of my life. And not to say that didn't come with its own difficulties, because if you are the one child in your neighborhood or in your street, or funda,
down with that blazer.
Exactly, and ufunda
50 cent.
Ufunda kwasona skolo. It becomes very difficult because people start to look at you as if better. So I found myself getting isolated a little bit at some point. But I think I've always kind of, being an only child, I've always kind of been, or growing up as an only child, I've always kind of been a loner. So that didn't really affect me as much. And I think it kind of groomed me to be the person that I am, and also honed my imagination to be what it is. Because a lot of the time you find that you have to, create your own world.
You've mentioned something about being a child and having a normal life, and you grew up on TV. People have been watching you, so you're one of the people that are considered as a child star.
No, I didn't grow up on TV. When I did television, I was actually a grown man.
What's a grown man to?
I was 20 when I started television, but I did do short films before, and I did do theatre. All of which was happening in my teen years. So from probably about the age of 9 or 11, one of the two. yeah, that's when my journey kind of actually really began taking shape and taking form. But in terms of television, I only started television when I moved to Cape Town, and my first proper television job was when I was 20. However, working on a kids' TV show, you are expected to be a child.
As a child.
Exactly. So I think that's the confusion that a lot of people have.
You are at that age and you moved to Cape Town from not so small town but to a bigger city.
Yes.
Cape Town. It's a very critical age or stage of your life where you are trying to find yourself. And now you're not just finding yourself, you are in the public eye, whether you like it or not. People will see you in a taxi because at that age, perhaps, I don't know, maybe you're not driving, but maybe you're not driving. You'll still climb a taxi, Cape Town being very popular with trains, or maybe you'll be in a train with somebody. How's that like for you? Having to maintain the whatever you define as normal and having to be the TV cell.
I think the one thing that people who know me will know is that I've never actually, played to this whole thing of celebrity and all of that. So if my situation at that time said if we're not calling things and calling things, it's not anything that I've built up in my head. It's only people's perceptions of what I should be doing. And I remember I used to fight a lot with my employers about this, and I would say to them, and not necessarily fighting my own battle, but fighting for my fellow castmates. I said, you guys expect us to be representatives of this brand. You expect us to be representatives of the channel. However, you're not even paying us enough for abanye betu to move out of home. I had fellow presenters who were still living at home, who didn't have cars. So that was a very difficult place to be. Luckily, now I had my own place. And I had a car which I always reminded them, a car. So I always had to remind them of that. They made me or anything like that. However, I do remember there were times when and you need to catch a taxi or catch a train. And one thing that I would always do is I would lie. And not because I'm ashamed, but because unless if you come up to me and say, Molo Samora,
Yes.
I do not want the attention. So I remember there was one time I was at a train station, I think Plattekloof, and this came up as a memory on Facebook, I think just like a couple of days ago. And I was sitting there with Nati, there's la short one hit 99. There's someone on that show that looks like you.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're related. You need to look it up. And I'm like, sure, no, I will. And depending out the interaction. Whereas if I had said, I'm Dim,
then it was going to be another thing.
Yeah, it's another thing. So rather just play to what this person is saying, rather than trying to attract even more attention than what you're getting.
Also because the TV is and basic hotmans, so it can't be because I'm done and go to now in real life.
Yeah.
Okay, no, this is a grown person, so you're fine and
exactly, because sometimes you'll find that when we needed to do the show, we would need to shave, and be clean shaven and wear certain kinds of clothes, and then you run into someone and somebody I won't be a suit,
It's a totally
and
different
exactly, I understand the banner. Is this the same? No way, can it be?
Yeah. Take me back to you growing up. I grew up as Lalini, and the only television that we had or channel that we had was SABC1. I grew up looking to the likes of your Cyphers, into your previous sister or brother channel, which is now your home, SABC1, your TV. And that's the only time we had to watch TV. It was BS before Sihlambi Sheds. And I wanted to be whatever they were. Has TV been part of your life, or is it a calling to you? How do you describe your life in TV?
I never thought of television, to be honest with you. Television found me.
Lucky.
Hence, I always say, for all the jobs that I've had, I've never had to work hard because I think I just stepped into what is destined for me at that moment.
Universe, that's right.
Yes. So television came as I moved from East London to Cape Town to go study it. After I thought I was going to be, like this movie producer slash writer. But
with that face, you've never seen yourself like on TV in front of the camera.
Not really. No.
Samora.
No, I hadn't. I really thought I was going to go into like production, and I took television as a subject.
Mm-hmm.
So writing and directing television. And I remember one of my presenters, we were having rehearsal for the show that we had to shoot. One of my presenters was not available that day. So just to show everybody how the show is going to work when we do shoot it, I then stepped in and as presenter for that day. And it turns out that in the control room, what we call 30 years, that we're working on a project which was going to be appearing on CTV, which is the community television station in Yasekap. So when their presenter dropped them, they asked me, and I was very surprised. But when I did that, the compliments that I got, along with compliments from my lecturer, or lecturers rather, that's when I was like, maybe there's something here. Mm-hmm. And then I auditioned for Hectic Nine-Nine.
I wouldn't have thought. I thought maybe TV is something that you grew up with. But you mentioned in the part of you growing up that having gone to town, I think it's a story that a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
And you stay in your Lokshini, it's whether you like it or not. So you grew up under some sort of isolation because it felt like you don't belong where you stay. That can lead to a lot of depression. And having been someone who has gone to an artistic institution, after those kind of people, and you see a lot of TV with celebrities, whether you like to admit or not, the fact that you are on TV, people do celebrate you.
Yeah.
And we see it a lot. There's a lot of challenges that they get to overcome or that they get to come across. Drug abuse or any other thing, depression and brokenness. Do you have any of those? Have you came across any of those in your life?
Listen, everything under the book. Every single thing under the book.
Let's eat this elephant at least maybe one piece at a time.
Depression, being out late, experimenting with drugs. We've all been there.
Take us through your drug moment. How did that affect you and the brand? Perhaps at that time, because you're just doing things as they come to you. You were not really focused on building the brand, Samora Mangesi, that you are now, and that most probably you stumbled through and like, actually, I am a brand. How did that affect you in your personal life?
In terms of my personal life, it made me realize who was there for me and who wasn't. I think more than anything, it was a phase, but which was of course fueled by the relations that I had with the people around me. We can always say, "Oh, I'm such a strong and independent person." However, we do succumb to peer pressure, even though someone is not saying, yeah, do this. So just wanting to, of course, fit in and be seen as one of the people around you. Yeah, so that has definitely been one of the things. But I think also what is the saving grace is that having grown up by yourself, you can't snap out of it and be like, actually, no, man, no, this is not me. And I've gone through those periods, even with friendships where I've had friendships where I'm like, oh, really cool and great, and then I sit back and I'm like, no, I don't really like the impact that this friendship is having on me in terms of my personality or how I'm now behaving or the things that I'm doing. So you therefore pull yourself back and you're like, actually, let me get back to myself.
I'm someone's child before I'm this person.
Yeah, so, and I was brought up in a certain way and there are certain things that I shouldn't be doing. So it was never specifically about the brand. I think it was just about
personal values.
Yes.
Okay. You've mentioned stuff, and I feel like now you've taken us to your Joburg life. Cape Town versus Joburg. choose?
I prefer to work in Joburg, but I love living in Cape Town, and I think that's one of the reasons why I made a joke one time that my neighbors probably think I am disposing of a dead body because every couple of days they put me in a suitcase. Every couple of days they put me in a suitcase, and that was because I was born on the coast. I lived on the coast for 20
something years,
25 years,
20s of
yeah, 26 years of my life, 24 years of my life. I was constantly on the coast, and I think whenever things got difficult for Mna, and finishing at Diagowisha, I would find myself getting on a plane and going to the coast. So whether it's
sea breeze,
yeah, I feel like I can breathe better on the coast because it's familiar, and my people are on the coast. So Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, East London, Durban, those are my places where I feel most alive and most at home. If I could afford to, I would probably work in Johannesburg and fly out to the coast, no matter which city it is. Fly out to the coast on a Thursday night and come back Monday morning.
Hello, Bonamatawa. You are in Joburg now, and you are on TV. It can be a very lonely city that is full of surprises and a lot of pressures and everything. How do you get to differentiate between the on-set Samora and the ordinary Samora that has friends? Because from following you just on Facebook and all other social medias, you do have people that are just ordinary South Africans. And how do you get to separate the two lives?
Well, firstly, I think it's very important to, because I started in this industry in a city outside of Johannesburg, and my friends were always my friends. I never had industry friends or industry pressures. When I moved to Johannesburg, I didn't slot into that. So I don't have what I would call industry friends. I have friends. I have people who, whether they're in the industry or not, would show up for me and I would show up for them. And when we are together, it's not industry, because and I think that's very important, because what makes one lonely is that differentiation where, I've only got industry friends and they only call me when they want to go and party, or when they want to be seen on the red carpet. And I don't have that. Now my friends are my friends, and they see me they see me in my pajamas, in my gown, if I can rock up to your house like that, then and nas pressures. And I think once I feel like there needs to be something more than that, I distance myself, because it's no longer a genuine friendship, So yeah.
We're living in a world where people are faced with so many challenges, especially with mental illnesses and all of that. Be it depression, be it anxiety, be it bipolar, be whatever. And you're quite very vocal about mental illnesses and the protection of that. And I think in one of your posts, as I was doing a little bit of research about you, you mentioned something about depression. Take us through that part of your life.
So here's my thing, right? And I'm very careful about the way that I word this, because I've never actually been diagnosed with depression. However, when you go and you Google the symptoms of what you have, you find that, okay, and this could be me. And I think more than anything, I can never actually understand what, or the depth of it, for Rabanya Bandu, because whatever I've had has always been on the surface, or has not been as deep to the point where I've maybe felt like where I felt like I've had an extended period of feeling hopeless and helpless, but of course I think for Mna, because I put so much, as an artist, you put so much emphasis on who you are being your job, that when the jobs no longer come, or the jobs aren't there,
it's totally sustainable.
It hits you hard, and your identity is so entrenched in your craft and your art, that when you're not doing that, there's an element of not feeling alive, and feeling like why am I even here? What's the point of this? What's the purpose? So I mean, I've gone through that. I've had those moments. I mean, my first year in Johannesburg was a very difficult year, which led to those thoughts. But I was very glad that I had people around me who were supportive enough. Yes, and you know, kind of brought me back to myself. And I think I always say everything that I go through has added to making me the broadcaster that I am today. Because if we're talking about being at a point where you want to commit suicide, I'm not just reading about it. You know, it's an experience, and I can speak about it from lived experience. So those kind of things, and I always say to people, when at some point, as a broadcaster or an actor, or you need to look at yourself as somewhat of a sacrificial lamb, because the things that happen to you
Absolutely.
are what are going to make you better at what you do. You know, so if you're an actor and you need to tap into a certain emotion, the things you've gone through are what help you to do that.
Whew, God, that was powerful. You're well made, very good looking, well spoken, very talented. But most of the times when I sit in front of my TV on a very cold day with my heater on and I'm watching these documentaries or these interviews of the so-called celebrities or people that appear on TV, they always have stories of them lounging, going broke, and not having a place of theirs to stay in and everything. And I've never read nothing of that sort about you.
I'm just not big enough of a celebrity. That's the
Is
problem.
it? Okay, but what are your experiences that any other ordinary understanding the industry that we are in, or that people are in, especially in South Africa, that people do get underpaid and there's so much expectations of their lives. What are your challenges, or maybe things that you had to go through and eventually overcame in your life that other people were not really aware of because they just see the made product?
The thing is, I'm very vocal. So I don't think, and I think that's why there aren't any stories about the difficulties in my life, because I always speak about them first. I mean, anybody that watches any of my shows will know that I speak very openly. I think my first year of World Cup was I used to talk about how Ndikombi Dixie and you know, and people think it's a joke, but it's not. I'm literally talking about my life. And with that, should anybody or any publication want to come and write about it,
It's already out there.
it's like, why are we writing about this? Because it's not news. So I think those kind of things, and one of the things that I did was when I moved to Johannesburg. That was a very difficult year because I was unemployed the entire year, and I stayed with friends for the first couple of months, and of course the difficulties of that, getting kicked out, sleeping in your car, you know, getting a place eventually. All you have is a bed, and those kind of things.
And eventually buying a fridge that we all had to celebrate, because Samora bought a fridge and we literally had to celebrate Samora's fridge.
Yeah. You know, but before even that, you know, it's things like, was badly rent because you're unemployed and you get locked out of your apartment. So there were those challenges, but I think I spoke about them, and I would put them out. But okay, this is what happened, and this is how it happened, and whatever. And not in a way to try and gain pity, but mostly to just kind of make people understand that, one, what you think someone's life is, you do not know what is actually happening. And number two, for those who want to get into this industry, understand that it is a work of passion. Because there are very few people who have actually made money off of industry work solely, without endorsements and you know, those kind of vibes. So yeah, and I was thinking about this just the other day, and I was like, hey, bonka bandaba ubabonayo uba ndinoze ndithi kubo, take us back to where you were living before you got that 2 million rand deal with that company, or before, you know, you would see a very different life, a very different lifestyle, and a very different person, you know. So yeah.
It's so funny because just watching you yesterday as a child, and now I'm sitting here on the couch with you. You're such a grown person, and there's a lot of growth.
Why does this one because who's anything I just the most black people. So okay, also come
as you put back as umkhulu wako, there's so much that you have done for yourself, and you have grown, and would literally just like to just enjoy on this cake lena to TV sitting here. Congratulations and well done. Take us now to the year, was it a year ago or just 2 years ago, when you surprised everybody and everyone was just celebrating you, happy to see you every Saturday, and you come back with a solemn face. You appear on social media on a video fighting with a racist and all of that.
Wasn't fighting.
Okay. What was
fighting? I was beaten up.
This is the time where you get to
let's clear that up now. I was not fighting.
I see you now, Tina Sabuzas.
No. I do not want it to seem like I was I was on the floor and I was beaten up. No man, you know, I think I've grown up in an environment where it was very integrated. And I always say this, I say if there was any racism, it was very covert. If people were racist, they were racist at their dinner tables, you know, with their high society people. Otherwise,
high teas.
Yeah, like for me, someone who was outwardly racist was something that I'd never experienced. And I think even living in Cape Town, it was not something that, you know, as much as Cape Town can be considered to be highly racist, but I think racism as a Kapa is more systematic than it is outright. Because of...
There's a lot of stories about that country, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think in Cape Town it's more systematic in the sense that there's, you know, there's a separation and this disparity in terms
of
yes,
versus us.
Exactly. And this disparity in terms of imali and, you know, that kind of vibe. But I never had like an outright racial experience where someone was, you know, being racist. However, you move to Johannesburg and you realize, yeah, you know, we always cry about Cape Town, but the east and the west of Johannesburg. And I didn't realize this until that incident, because after that I actually became very much more aware of it, just in terms of you're driving in the west and the aggression that people have because you're a black man who's driving a certain kind of car, or, you know, I overtake a umdu, but why are you so aggressive? When you realize, oh,
it's just actually,
yeah. But anyway, that night, literally near my friend's place, was probably about 300 meters from the gate. We've come back from dinner, we see Imod, I think it was a white Jetta 3 that had overturned robots. And we pull up next to it and we ask these guys, are you okay? Do you need us to call anyone? You know, like, and that's when we were called monkeys. And we were actually called monkeys by the tow truck driver.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the first one to call us monkeys. And we were like, oh, but
this is 2019.
Yeah, it's 2019. Like,
where are we?
Exactly. And that was our reaction. And then Gabo 1997. Yeah. So they started calling us monkeys and whatever. So we engaged them. Like, how can you think it's acceptable to be calling black people monkeys in 2019? Yeah, escalator. And the next thing, I was hit on the back of the head with something. I fell to the ground, and I remember saying to them, I was with two friends of mine. Kumulani City
If you were to speak to the 10-year-old you, wherever you were at that time, or maybe the 20-year-old you transitioning from the city of East London to Cape Town, what message would you say as a 20? How old are you?
I'm not 27.
As a 27-year-old that you are.
I would say to the 10-year-old me, I would say to him, you are doing well. You are well on your way and your path, and continue to fight for what you want. Because I think at that age, my parents didn't really understand this thing of wanting to be in theatre and being at the theatre, doing rehearsals for 2 shows at the same time until 11 o'clock at night, and still having to get home and do schoolwork and all of those things. Yeah, like those kind of things. But it paid off.
Eventually.
The 20-year-old me, I would say, Suthanda izinto. Yeka. Oh,
Zithande.
I look back and I cringe at some of the things that I have done in my
Your Facebook stories. There's nothing that makes me cringe like Facebook stories.
No, for me it wasn't even Facebook
memories,
stories.
rather.
No, not even Facebook memories, because I kept things off of social media. But the things that I would do, like there are people, especially in Cape Town, that if you spoke to, or my best friends, if you spoke to them, they would have stories for days about just, life. And what the things that I've done. Or I'm one of those people who experience everything at least once. So that you can speak from experience. Yeah, so
you are on a show currently that has been done by one of the greatest in the industry, from Kuli Roberts. And
Kuli Roberts is the first one that you mentioned when you talk about the previous hosts of my show. I mean, like, I thought you were going to talk about Trevor Noah first.
No, sorry, I just love Kuli. Trevor's not South African, so I love Kuli. I know Kuli could possibly be watching this. Talk about Kuli. If I was Kuli doing the show that you are doing currently, being the person that is on TV, and I have to feature you and say something about you because she was cutthroat, I would say shame or Samora Mangesi in the jolling industry, because the only thing we hear is complaints and zanga seva kutwe na kungena ku red carpet event ethile uhamba nobani kesibena or anything.
Guys, I was in a fully fledged relationship for almost 4 years.
Where was it?
And I wore a ring even. Like, what?
Where was it?
I just choose what I let you guys know. And yeah, and as a matter of fact, what happens in my life, I always, and a friend of mine, he once said to me, you said, give people enough of your life for them to think that they know enough, for them to not want to.
Let me tell you what a friend of mine said. A friend of mine, Bonang Matera, I wish, she said, if I were to
yeah.
Like bad pet and
exactly.
But the thing is, we're not getting that from you.
No.
We want to see the happy life. At least speech your friend does tell us back, guys, ukhona umuntu engcumanaye simbone pa ku Facebook noma sambona upesika, but
I do that all the time. However, my thing is, I make it seem like a joke, so people think that today I will post something about, oh my gosh, I'm so in love. And genuinely I am in love. But then 2 days later, guys, can you again single?
So yes, to see that.
Of course, because I cannot be the story. Because now front page Sunday Sun about no, sorry.
In this show, we specialize on talking about untold stories. Anything that I may have or any other person might not have read, but you feel like has been said or written about you that you feel like it was untrue. This is the only moment that you can unfix it.
Oh no. Except for that one time where there was a publication that said that Osnazo and I were fighting.
Are you a celebrity amanyani? Akho ndibhala ngawe tu.
Ziyabhalwa izinto, but a lot of them are true. Except for the one time where they said Snazo and I were fighting, and we were just like, what? So that was literally pulled out of thin air. But everything else, and you know, we're at a point in time now in life where our journalism is at a point where they look to your social media for what they write about you. So what you put out is what the publications will write. Oh, also that one time where they said I'm married to myself.
Aren't you?
No.
Oh.
They saw that's that time when I was fully fledged in my relationship, and I then we stop nonsense.
Then stop nonsense.
It's the ring.
Oh, okay.
And they called me and they were like, "We see a ring on your Instagram. Are you married or are you engaged?" So I said, "No, guys, no. Nah, I'm not even seeing anyone in the lady single guy or etc. etc. If anything."
How does it feel to be denied on papers by Samora as say ring but get?
No, I think when you understand the person that you're with, because also the person that I was with at that time would not have wanted
to be out there.
Nah, not a thing. So very few of my friends have actually met them as well. So it's that type of vibe. I think I live what people think is a very public life or very private life in a very public way. Yeah.
Whatever that means. Against slums apart from yourself. I understand your pandakuvanga. I hope no mutobukale mhlambi somewhere about teeny. Like Stars and now you guys have a very good thing going on, a relationship.
Great relationship. She bought me a full tank of petrol there, like just 2 weeks ago.
Forget petrol. for someone maybe someone was here just in jail or to brag by Namda Mazika. Why blanda? Actually, blanda and one until so that ungafike emsebenzini khefuzela and stuff, and then he will fetch you, drop you when you guys started working. And how has that been like the sisterhood or the relationship you guys have built? It's beautiful. It translates well on TV.
Thank you. I think for her, as much as she's worked with so many other hosts before, she always says I'm the first one that she actually has a genuine friendship with. And I appreciate that because, when you're working with someone in that space where you have to kind of, a friend of mine once said, in order to be really good on screen, and I am not advocating for this, but they said you either need to genuinely be friends with the person that you're working with, or you need to know them intimately in terms of like sexually to get over that tension, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So what was nice is that Snazo and I actually...
You say sexually, sorry, it doesn't want to leave my head.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, a lot of the time, because that's just to punch out that awkwardness that you guys might have. But luckily, Snazo and I have a genuine friendship, so when there's nothing that's off limits, I know pretty much everything about her life. She knows pretty much everything about mine because, we sit and we talk and we confide in each other, and it's a great relationship to have. So even when we're on screen, if Megan didn't get it, I know what I can make fun of her about, and I know how far I can go with it.
There's boundaries.
Yeah. Apart from that, it's also just me knowing and understanding. Okay.
What she's comfortable with.
Yeah. So I know I can make fun of her about this, even though it's a sensitive subject. But I know how to and how far I can take it without it being offensive to her, and she knows the exact same with me. Like, I mean, if you watch any of the episodes, Usnazo will talk about things like, relationships now. She's not talking about the rest of the world, she's talking about me. And of course I'll laugh about that because maybe the previous day we were sitting together and Mbali said, yo, it's a going.
Yeah,
Like that stuff. So she knows where to traverse, and I know where to traverse, and that's why it translates so well on screen because we know each other that well.
it's beautiful to watch. Snazayola, we love you. We're running out of time, but I want you now to talk to, again, the 10-year-old that is not you, that is watching and that looks at Laputo Papayo at TV. And a lot of people want to be, not necessarily you, but TV. Talk to me as that young child against and for television. The do's and don'ts, the things that I need to expect, or the challenges that you can expect.
So my thing is, start where you are. A lot of people think you need to move to Johannesburg in order to be, successful, and that in its own can create challenges. I think in any industry, what you need to do is start where you are. So instead of moving without any background, we all have cell phones. And nowadays, I always say, if you have a cell phone or if you have a social media account, in some way or another, you are somewhat a broadcaster because you're putting out content for people to consume. Right?
Hello, Nasiza.
So I think definitely start there. And there's so many people who are now, doing big things, like you've mentioned, all Nasiza. We're doing massive things because they started with where they are and what they have. So even if you are 10 years old, bring your friends together. Let's say,
Just took me back.
Yeah. And that in itself is going to grow the passion and the love for what you're doing, or totally disassociate you from it, because then you'll see, this is not something I want to do. And from there it will grow, and you will see...
Why is it really for you?
Yeah, and you'll see the fruits of it as well, because, of course, the more you practice, or the more you do something, the better you become at it. So, if you start, by the time you are in your 20s, you either have reached or you're very close to reaching your 10,000 hours.
Alright. A quick one, yes or no? Are men trash?
Of course they are. All men are trash. I'm trash, you're trash. We're all trash. We've all seen something. We've all been in a situation where we have kept quiet, looked away, not called out our friends, I'm actively now trying to be someone who disassociates from that kind of behavior. So even when there are people I deem to be friends of mine and I find out that in actual fact there have been incidences, I disassociate. Yeah.
A message to your fellow trashers out there. We are faced now with another pandemic in South Africa, just to say, where there's like a lot of gender-based violence cases. Any message that you'd like to say to men out there or any other people that are perpetrators?
I think I don't necessarily want to speak to them, because I think we've spoken to them so many times and clearly the message is not getting through. I think the message is to those at the top, the powers that be, our government. There needs to be legislation changes now. There needs to be a difference in what we are seeing in terms of how these cases are handled. We cannot have gender-based violence trending every single year in South Africa.
Every single day.
Yeah.
A year is too long.
So it's not something that should be happening. It can't be a full cycle all the time. We need to have drastic measures, I'm not going to say what I think should be done, because that would be considered inciting violence. But I think for a lot of people, especially abantu ababethayo or abantu abaripayo, take those tools away. Yeah.
I'm so glad he's not a president of South Africa, but anyways.
Well, I mean, GBV would go down by a lot if I was president. Because I would take the necessary steps and the action to make sure that it does.
You're an experimenter based on the conversation that we just had and the chat that we just had. It was a lively one, I must say. And
compared to whose other chat?
Compared to whose other chat? Alright, this is the first episode.
Exactly.
So he's brilliant because he's the first person.
Exactly. It was lively.
It was lively. Well, it was lively for a first chat. Thank you so much. Yeah, Dick, yeah. But anyways, talk to another experimenter. Just briefly talk to another experimenter out there. The things that he had overcome, the things that maybe you would say, I wish I had not, or the things that you have learned.
There isn't anything I wish I had not done, because everything that you do makes you who you are. So yeah. And who you are in this industry, in this world, is very, it defines what you become. So there's a lot of things that I had to experiment with and go through and live through, which have now opened up my mind to the person that I am now. So many people who have grown up with closed off, lives are now the most judgmental people, and now those people that are, inflicting violence on others because of their beliefs. But when you grow up in an environment, or you grow up in a way where you were experimenting with things, you actually realize, no matter, I need to be more lenient on other people. Also, a lot of the time you're just like, dingenapi, I'm getting now, no, no. So I think my journey has taught me that. So I find that because of the way that I've lived my life, I've become one of the least judgmental people out there, and most open-minded, most understanding people. So I would like that other people would actually become more experimental in their lives, so that life is not just black and white. It's
a grey area.
Yeah,
Grey area needs to
and the grey area is actually multiple shades of grey.
And understand, because I don't cruise.
Of course.
I understand.
Yeah.
Samora, I'm going to sing about that, but
thank you for having me. Okay.
Alright, as people, we do go through life challenges in our lives, but sometimes we do need a little bit of spiritual guidance and words of wisdom. And we do have our sister, Zanele Ntloko, who's gonna tell us, or maybe reflect on this episode, whatever we just spoken about with Samora. We call it Mirror Moments with Z. Here's what she has to say.
Hi guys, my name is Z. I'm Z Ntloko. How wonderful it is to just have a little chat with you guys from hearing about such a wonderful life of Samora Mangesi. When you find yourself in that situation as such a young man stepping into such big shoes, there's always pressures. And I could realize in hearing his story that he had to go through a lot. And what I had to mirror for myself from his story was just how sometimes perception can cloud our own judgment and can in some way getting yourself in a position where you are now living under the expectations of other people of who you should be, because now all of a sudden you are in everybody's eye. And when you're in everybody's eyes, everybody thinks that they know what you should be. They have an expectation of how you should live. And that happens to all of us in our daily lives. So that is why that was something that was really caught my attention in hearing about his story, that I wanted to share with you guys that in life, it is very important to always be true to self. When you are true to yourself, you are not perfect. It does not mean that you are always doing perfect things at the perfect time. All that it says is you are true to learn your lessons as you journey along. Because the pressures can put you to, as we saw in Samora's story, that because of the pressure, sometimes you can find yourself in wrong crowds, you can find yourself doing wrong things that you never imagined that you would find yourself doing. But if you are true to self, those things, they become lessons. You learn from them, and when you allow yourself to learn from those things, then you are not under the pressure to be always good in people's eyes. You allow yourself and you give yourself permission to live through those decisions that you've made. Be it a bad decision, be it a good decision, you still stay true to you, because there is nothing in this life that is good as staying your own real best friend. Be the person that tells yourself the truth about yourself all the time, and then you will find that whether you are in a situation where you've made the biggest mistake of your life, you learn the lesson so that you do better the next time.
This is a moment ahead where we have to say goodbye and obviously show some sort of appreciation to our guest. And today we're joined by Samora Mangesi, who has shared some vulnerable stories about his life, and we so much appreciate him. Samora, thank you so much for
thank you
joining
for
us.
having me.
We would like to say to you, thank you so much for joining us on our very first.
Kutheni around nje ngathi butywala.
Kutheni around ngathi butywala. Umdala, but we trust you to consume whatever is in here. It could be a cologne, you may never know. Yes. It's a glass.
I mean, we like big things, but come on.
Do consume it. With lonto yenzayo and ungabethwa ungaphinde wenze izinto and eziza kuveza ezTVini and uzithande singaphinde sikubona kwa Shakers uqabe vula usenza into efanele ukubuzenze, but siya appreciate.
Tell me, why does it seem like you're coming for me? You forget that I know your stories.
Kaya and okanye umzali ubukeleyo because inkqubo yenu iyathandwa kakhulu, and you guys are doing an amazing job. Like I said, that it translates well on screen. Where do we see you in the next 5 years, and what great plans do you have?
Well, currently I've been doing radio for the past couple of years, specifically now doing news and current affairs, and so that's something that a lot of people don't know. So I'm at a fork in the road where I don't know if I want to specifically continue with entertainment and go into current affairs, but I think that the fact
Suspicion sound below ukufaka le moya. So ufuna ukwenza current affairs.
But so I think I'm glad that I have the option to do either one when I want to. So yeah, I think the road ahead is one that nobody knows, not even I know. I shall wait for the world to show me when and the signs to point me in the right direction.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. We do understand about busy indon because I come sebenza TV ngel xesha, so andikwazi ke sanqaqala uba busy. We really do appreciate you. And abantu bakufumana phi, how do they engage with you after this?
At Sam_Mangesi on Twitter, Samora Mangesi on Facebook, and Samora_Mangesi on Twitter. However, generally, if you just search for Samora, I am pretty much the one that comes up first.
Yes! That was it. Thank you so much, Samora. I appreciate you.